In 1989, there was an epic comic book movie that was put out. Batman came to the big screen once again, and there's been plenty of Batman movies ever since, but this one was kind of a new edge for Batman and the way things went. And of course, in it, we see the epic battle of Batman versus Joker reintroduced to everyone who doesn't read comic books. And in it is this battle back and forth. And as we get towards the end of the movie, we find that Gotham City is celebrating 200 years, a 200-year anniversary of being a city. And the city doesn't have the funds to throw a party because of the antics of the Joker. And so the Joker, trying to persuade people that he is a good guy, decides, I'm going to fund a parade for the 200th anniversary. And in that parade, he's going to give out money to anybody who is there. They're just going to throw out money. And in it, as he goes through the parade, he gives a little speech that kind of speaks to all of us, and especially speaks to us as we look at James chapter 5. So we're going to watch a quick video clip of that.
It's time for Who Do You Trust? Hubba, hubba, hubba. Money, money, money. Who do you trust? Me? I'm giving away free money. And where is the Batman? He's at home, washing his tights.
So there's the epic question. Who do you trust? The Joker wins favor of the people over by promising them money. They're throwing, if you've seen that movie, you know that throughout the parade, they just have garbage sacks full of money, and they're just throwing it out in the crowd, and the crowd is fighting over each other to get the money. And he asks the question, who do you trust? And as I was looking over James chapter 5 this week, I couldn't help but think of that same question all week long. Who do you trust? When it comes to your life, when it comes to the things that you have, when it comes to your money, all those kind of things, who do you trust? So James chapter 5, verses 1 through 6 is where we're studying today. And James writes, "Pay attention, you wealthy people. Weep and moan over the miseries coming upon you. Your riches are rotted. Moths have destroyed your clothes. Your gold and silver have rusted, and their rust will be evidence against you. It will eat your flesh like fire. Consider the treasure you have hoarded in the last days. Listen, hear the cries of the wages of your field hands. These are the wages you have stolen from those who harvested your fields. The cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord of heavenly forces. You have lived a self-satisfying life on this earth, a life of luxury. You have stuffed your hearts in preparation for the day of slaughter. You have condemned and murdered the righteous one who doesn't oppose you." The word of the Lord for us this morning. The question is, who do you trust? James doesn't leave the question hanging for us. He doesn't pause for a while and kind of beat around it a little bit, but he goes right to the heart of the issue. The fleeting nature of riches and the false security that they promise, and we lay our trust in them, then it's going to go to waste. And so we're going to look at a few different things that James has to say out of these verses to us today. The first one is that there's a reality of riches. That James gives us a reality check. Who do you trust? Do you trust something that is of this earth? Something that is of around you that is going to pass away someday? Or do you trust the eternal, only Creator God? That he reminds us that even gold and silver, which don't rust, will on the last days will corrode away. That everything material, everything on this earth eventually decays in some way. It goes to waste. Look again there at verses 1 through 3 of today's reading. "Pay attention, you wealthy people. Weep and moan over the miseries coming upon you. Your riches are rotted, moths have destroyed your clothes. Your gold and silver have rusted, and their rust will be evidence against you." So maybe this morning, as we think about who do you trust, think about what if the things you trusted the most, your savings, your possessions, your comfort, What if those were suddenly gone? What would remain in your life? What would be shown by who do you trust? Jesus also instructs us on how to trust in God and not trust in the things of this earth. In Matthew 6, verses 19 to 21, stop collecting treasures for your own benefit on earth, where moth and rust eat them, and where thieves break in and steal them. Instead, collect treasures for yourselves in heaven, where moth and rust don't eat them, and where thieves don't break in and steal them. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And so the focus is not on the things that are created around us, not on the things that are of creation. That last week we talked a little bit from James chapter 4 at the end, and one of the verses is James asked the question, what is your life? You are a mist that appears for only a short while and then vanishes. And so if we believe that we are only here for a short time, and we talked a lot on Wednesday at both our Bible study groups about what it means to be just a mist, just a quick vanish, and then we're gone. And that idea that what we do on this earth, what we do in this lifetime is really about that long, and what happens for eternity goes on and on and on. And so that little bit that we make right now will affect the rest of us, the rest of our time into eternity. And so if we're just a vapor, just a mist, then why do we think that the things that we have around us are going to last forever? Why do we think the things of creation will continue to last by putting our trust in them and putting our faith in them instead of God? And so we need to remember to watch ourselves. We need to watch ourselves and not put our trust in our wealth, not put our trust in our riches, our money, and our possessions, because those lead down the path to corruption. Those lead down the path to selfishness and to sinfulness. The Apostle Paul, he writes about this a little bit when he's sending a letter to Timothy, one of his pastoral proteges. He sends these words to him. He says, the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Some have wandered away from the faith and have impaled themselves with a lot of pain because they made money their goal. Notice what Paul says there at the very top. Paul doesn't say money is the root of all kinds of evil. It's very important that we remember that because some people like to distort that. He says the love of money becomes that. Okay? Let's be clear. Anytime that we preach about money, money is not a problem. If you have money, that doesn't make you wrong. That doesn't make you sinful. That doesn't make you bad. If God has blessed you in that way, good for you. Good for you. But it's the love, it's the dependence on money, it's the desire to accumulate more and more and more, no matter what happens around you, that causes the problems, that creates that desire in you to do whatever it takes to get more. The writer of Ecclesiastes, he talks about this a little bit in Ecclesiastes 5, verse 10. He says, the lover of money isn't satisfied with money, neither is the lover of wealth satisfied with income. Because they always want more. It's kind of like what you hear when you hear about some of the old days and the gold rush days, right? And it was that gold fever. People found a little bit and then they would give up everything to go find more and find more and find more. It's kind of like Marty when it's huckleberry season, right? Marty loves to go out and pick huckleberries, and he just gets so focused on that. Last year he's like, I've got purple fever, but you got lots of good huckleberries though out of it, huh? But it's that desire. If it overcomes everything else in our senses, then it's wrong. The love of money just leaves us desiring more and wanting to accumulate more. Have bigger houses, have newer tech, have all those kind of things. And it's not wrong to have those things, but it's wrong when that becomes your desire, when that becomes all you focus on and all that you do. We put our trust on earthly things, we become self-focused. We become thinking more about what it takes to get more. It's kind of like a piece of fruit that you see sitting on your counter. And that piece of fruit is slowly dying away. It's slowly rotting away, but you don't notice it on the outside because it's happening on the inside until finally you take a bite into it or you cut into it and you realize that it's all gross on the inside. That wealth and that desire, that gold fever, that desire to have more has a way of just eating inside of you until it finally just comes out and shows in all the different things that you've done. That earthly wealth fades fast, but faith lasts forever. And we need to remember that's what James is trying to talk to us about today, is remembering that earthly wealth fades fast, but our faith and how we live out our life, that is what will last forever. That's what will have the lasting effect. And so then James goes on to warn us against not just having wealth, but the process of gaining wealth. And point number 2 today, he talks about the record of unjust actions. The record of unjust actions. He talks about the fact that when we trust material gain, when we put all of our focus on getting more and having more and stockpiling up on things, that we tend to then be so focused on that we forget about the people around us, and we forget about the consequences of what we do. And that God then hears the cries of the people around us. And even though we may be ignoring them, God does not ignore them. God hears their cries, the people that we've cheated, the people we've stepped over, the people we've pushed away. Look again at James 5, verse 4. Listen, hear the cries of the wages of your field hands. These are the wages you stole from those who harvested your fields. The cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord of heavenly forces. The landowners of James's time, they were hoarding their money. They were doing everything they could to keep as much as possible. They were exploiting their workers. They were cheating them out of their wages. They were paying them late or not paying them as much as promised. They were finding every corner they could to keep as much of that money to themselves and for their families. Many of you can kind of understand what they may have been going through at that time, those workers. Some of you know what it's like, if you're not now, but some of you may remember a time where you were living paycheck to paycheck. What happens when you're living paycheck to paycheck and you don't get paid on time? What happens when you don't get paid the full amount of money that you were promised and that you were expecting? What happens is those bills don't wait. Those bills are still due. What happens is the landlord wants his rent still at the same time. You still get hungry and you still have mouths to feed. These landowners were hoarding in and they weren't doing what they were supposed to do, and their workers were going through all these same kind of questions. How do I pay my bills? How do I pay my rent? How do I feed my family? Again, a reminder that wealth itself isn't sinful, but greed is. The ways that we attain it is. And the challenge is for Christians to never attain it in a false way, not by lying or cheating or fraud or defrauding people, but being open and honest. Instead, we're called to be people of integrity. We're called to be people of generosity. We're called to be people who trust God to take care of us and to provide for us. We're called to trust God for all of those things that we have around us. And if we're not doing our part, if we're not helping the ways that we're supposed to, God hears the cries of the injustice, even when people don't. And so we need to pay attention to what God is speaking to us about. I know in the church we do a lot of different projects, and we have a lot of different offerings that we collect for. And those are different offerings that we've established as being important to help with us. We have a lot of different needs that are out there, and we try to pick the best ones, the ones that we can help with the most. But I also know that there's only so much money you guys can give. And so we offer it because God may speak to you about one offering, and you give to that. And then we have another offering, and God may not speak to you about that. It may not be something passionate, and you can freely not give to an offering. As long as God is there with you and you're saying, all right, God, I feel more passionate about this or about that. And so it's that reminder that God will speak to you and God will show you the ways to be generous and to be people of integrity along the way, because he hears the cries of the injustice that's being done, even if we're not as aware of it as we should be. And so we take these two things together when James is talking about wealth and talking about all the things that are going on, and we see a result. There's a result of living this kind of lifestyle, this wealthy, me-first, greedy lifestyle. And so the results of the results of this kind of living James paints a chilling picture for us at this part. I know, I put a word up there, I can't say it right now. Indulgent. Indulgent. Sorry, I can't move on until I can say it right. So, because I put it there, so I should know it. The result of the indulgent living. James paints a chilling picture for us. People are fattening themselves up for the day of slaughter. How many of you guys are fattening yourself up for the day of slaughter? No, we're eating because we're people and we're just living life. But he is taking a very vivid image here for this. He is saying that we are taking our comfort and it has lulled us to sleep spiritually. That we have taken our wealth and we've used it to blind us to the needs of people around us and the ways of God around us. We have allowed our greed to take over and to guide us instead of allowing God to guide us. And so when we trust in material comforts, our souls grow dull to eternal realities around us. Our souls start to be dim and not as aware of things the more we are involved and envelope ourselves with greed and with a desire for wealth. Again, kind of that gold fever idea. Look again at verse 5 from today. You have lived a self-satisfying life on this earth, a life of luxury. You have stuffed your hearts in preparation for the day of slaughter. Notice the words that James has right there. You have lived a self-satisfying life. You have lived a self-satisfying life. He is condemning those who are living a life that is about them, that's about me and my comfort and my money and my bank account and my nice cars and my nice house. That he is condemning those that are that way. Again, he's not condemning Christians who are wealthy and have money and have nice things, who are still focused on God. But for those who are not paying attention to God, those who have become blind to spiritual things, and they've allowed those comforts and those luxuries to take over all their desires, he is calling them out. In the Bible and other places since then, there's a philosophy of life called hedonism. And hedonism is the belief that pleasure is the chief good of all of life. That we are to avoid pain. We're to avoid problems. That we shouldn't worry about other people and their wants and desires. That we should just do whatever feels good to us. That we should live a life of pleasure and give yourself over to whatever satisfies you without any consequences and without worrying about it. And so James is speaking against it, but James isn't the only place in the Bible that speaks against it. The Apostle Paul, in his second letter to Timothy, his young protege, he writes these words. Understand that the last days will be dangerous times. People will be selfish and love money. They will be the kind of people who brag and who are proud. They will slander others, and they will be disobedient to their parents. They will be ungrateful, unholy, unloving, contrary, and critical. They will be without self-control and brutal, and they won't love what is good. They will be people who are disloyal, reckless, and conceited. They will love pleasure instead of loving God. What are the signs of the last days? Feel like we just have to look around. Feel like we just have to read the headlines around us. Twisted view of yourself. A twisted view of how to live life. A twisted view of what's important in life. A twisted view of what brings you love and pleasure. We become narcissistic. We then look out for what brings us our own gain and say that's what matters the most. We fatten ourselves up with comfort and luxury instead of following the ways of God, instead of truly living what God calls us to live, to love God and to love people. And the result of all this, James tells us that when we have indulged ourselves, when we have fattened ourselves for the day of slaughter, that judgment is coming against us. That there will be a judgment about our self-indulgent lifestyle, and that they will come a time where we will be slaughtered for it. That in the end times, when God makes everything right, God will judge us all according to the ways that we live. And then eternity, that little bit of time we've spent now and we've put our trust in now, will have a response to it that will take us into eternity. And if we followed the selfishness and the comfort and all those kind of things, that we will be judged and put into eternal punishment? Or if we put our trust in God and we followed him with our ways, then we will get that eternal reward. We have fattened ourselves, and God will judge us for that. When comfort becomes our God, conviction quietly dies. When comfort becomes our God, conviction quietly dies. And so we then get distracted. And we ask the question, who do you trust? And it shows. And I can say to anybody that all I have to do is look at the things that are in your life, and I can tell who you trust the most. Money, comfort, God, family. What are the things you spend your money on? What are the things you spend your time doing? That all those things come together and show us. And the more that we find ourselves in that comfort and looking out for ourselves, the more that we feel less convicted about following God's ways. And so then we get stuck fattening ourselves for the day of slaughter. But James does leave us with a reminder of how we can have a remedy for this. That he gives us a remedy that basically says we need to renew our trust in God. We need to renew our trust in him. That wealth, again, itself is not evil. Worshiping it is, though. And the remedy isn't guilt, isn't me up here telling you how bad you are for having nice things. The remedy is you connecting with God. You finding the acceptance from God. You repenting and saying, God, I've been focused on myself too long. And I need to trust you to take care of me and take care of you and look to you to provide for me. And then asking God for that renewal in your life of trust. James calls us to build our trust not on fading treasures around us, but to build our trust on a faithful God who has been there from the very beginning, who has created all this, who has called us to take care of creation, not worship creation, and has called us to be followers of him, living out and taking care of it the ways that he's called us to. And so we need to change our perspective, change our way of thinking and looking at God and his ways first, looking for his guidance and his direction. In a sermon in the 1800s, John Wesley was preaching to a group in England, and he gave a sermon on money. And in that sermon on money, he had 3 points to it. And he said that followers of Jesus, when it comes to thinking about money, should earn all you can, save all you can, and give all that you can. And this is the point, right? John Wesley, even in the 1800s, is saying it's okay to earn all the money you can. It's okay to save all that you need to save. That's what everybody does. But as a Christian, we need to remember, give all that you can. That God calls us to be generous people. That God has been generous with us. He has given us his love and his grace. He first was generous by sacrificing his son, sending Jesus to live on this earth to show us the ways of the kingdom of God, and then dying on the cross, sacrificing so that we could have the forgiveness of sins, so that we could be brought back before God, so that we could be relieved of this love of creation, and instead we can be in love and trust the one who's created us, the one who's made us and guided us. The remedy to selfishness, the remedy to sin, the remedy to being stuck on wealth and possessions is by trusting in God and handing it over to him and showing and allowing him to show you how much he can do for you and how he can take care of you. Proverbs chapter 3, we find these wise words from the writer. It says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Don't rely on your own intelligence. Know him in all your paths, and he will keep your ways straight. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. He will take care of you. He will provide for you. We have a whole book right here, this whole Bible right here that tells us how God has provided and taken care of and loves and has created and forgives people, and how he's continued to do that ever since. And so we look to that and we rely on that. And so how do we show our trust in God? How do we show our trust in God? The first is to practice generosity. That remember that God generously has given to us, and he wants us to look out for each other, to help others. And so live and practice generosity. Sometimes it may hurt. Sometimes it may not be the thing you want to do. But we need to remember that God wants us to be generous. And so to help put our trust in God, we give. We're generous. The first area that we have is in the church. And we talk about tithes and offering. And remember that tithe basically means 10%. And the idea, the practice that has been in the church since the Old Testament times was that when you get paid, when you bring in food from the fields, you would take 10% of that and you would give it to the church so that ministry can be done through the church. That tithing is giving 10% of what I earn off the top into the offering plate, or giving it online these days, or mailing in a check, whatever that looks like for you. And then when there's extra offerings and extra things that we're collecting for, it's being willing to say, God, do you want me to give something here? And then asking him and talking to him about handing it over, trusting that as you give your tithe, as you give your offering, you're trusting that God is still going to take care of you, that God is still going to provide for you, and you're still going to be able to make it. And so it's having that discussion with God. The greatest way to get rid of that greed inside of you is by giving. That loosens up the grip more than anything else. When you go to the beach and you grab a handful of sand, you try to hold it as much as you can, and you realize that as you clench your fist, it all starts to drain out. And you find that you only hold very little actually in the palm of your hand. But if you take that same hand and you leave it flat and you pull it up, you'll realize more sand stays on top because you've given it more space. And so we need to lessen our grip on that so that we can have more blessing. And so God will use us to be more generous and to do more things. And so we must first practice generosity. The second way to show your trust in God is to live with eternity in view. Remembering that the things of this world will one day pass away. That unfortunately one day we will all pass away. And the things that we have collected on this earth, the things we have brought together on this earth, they don't go with us. And so do we put our trust in the things that won't go with us? Or are we putting our trust in a God who will be with us through it all? And a God who will provide for us? And a God who will, one day we will stand before him and he will say, well done, good and faithful servant. You put your trust in me, so welcome to your eternal reward. Everything will pass away, but your faith is what will stand throughout eternity. And the last one is trust the true owner of all things. And I've kind of hit on this several times. But God doesn't give up on us. That God loves us and he's there for us. God is the one who owns all of this. He created the heavens and the earth. He has placed us here. He created us here. Look in Genesis chapter 1. He created us here to help take care of it. To be stewards of it, not to be owners of it. To help provide and take care of creation, not to possess it as our own and take care of it. And so we need to remember that he is the true owner, and so we need to give him that trust in our life. We need to remember that trust that outlasts time is trust that is placed in God alone. Trust that outlasts time is trust placed in God alone. Everything else fades, everything else corrodes, everything else gets holes in it and falls apart. Everything one day will be obsolete. And so the question this morning for you is, who do you trust? James reminds us that true security isn't in the things that we possess. That true security is not in the things that we possess, but it is found only in God. And in a God who never fades. A God who has been the same yesterday, today, and will be tomorrow. And so as we enter into our reflection time this morning, we're going to sing a song as our closing song. And the song is a good old hymn of the church, Be Thou My Vision. Its words remind us to seek God above riches, to seek God above human praise. And in it is especially these lines, riches I heed not, nor man's empty praise. Thou, mine inheritance now and always. Thou, God, you are my inheritance now and always. And so this morning, as we sing this song, Maybe God's speaking to you a little bit about who do you trust? Are you really showing in your life that you trust him? Maybe you need to, for the first time, say, God, I want to trust you. Help me trust you. And today you can pray that prayer, asking God to help you figure out what it means to trust him, to accept that his love is for you and his forgiveness is for you. Or maybe you've been living and there's something you're holding on to that shows that you aren't trusting God. And maybe today is the day to kind of admit that to God, confess it to God, saying, God, I haven't been trusting you with this area of my life. Help me to learn to trust you. And so whatever that looks like for you today, if you need to come and pray up at the altars and just have that moment where you're kneeling before God, talking to him about it, feel free to come and do that. If you need me to pray with you or pray for something for you, I'll be standing right here. You can just come and ask me, and I'll pray with you. But please stand. And as we get ready to sing this song, I have this quick words of prayer. Lord, teach us to loosen our grip on the things that fade and to hold fast only to you, to the one who endures through it all. Free us from trusting in wealth, comfort, and control. Be our treasure, be our vision, be our joy. We'll sing this song together, and then I'll close our service in a time of prayer.